Hey everybody, Marcus here. So I wanted to talk about Gen Z once again because I honestly love talking about the specific subject. Now, why Gen Z? It's not so much because they're Gen Z, it's more that Gen Z are a catalyst. They're a catalyst for culture. You see, I'm more interested in the thing that follows Gen Z, or otherwise said, precedes Gen Z, the creative force which brought them into being, and that is the culture. Now, I'm a Gen Xer. That means that the world I grew up in no longer exists, meaning whatever I can understand from the past, not so much really how the world is anymore. So, through the catalyst of studying Gen Z, I get a good insight into the culture, into the youth, and whatever it is that may entail. This is going to change, of course, when Gen Alpha come into being a bit more, because they're going to be more representative of the world that, well, we live in. And so that's why I like to talk about Gen Z. Now, specifically what I wanted to get into this particular video is the complaints. Now, we all know Gen Z like to complain, and they complain about pretty much everything. And they have a lot of reasons to actually complain about. However, I think this actually goes a bit deeper than the topical. I think a lot of these complaints have nothing to do with the actual world situation that we're facing right now. I think a lot of it has to do with what I spoke of in a previous video, this sense of betrayal. As in, if the world were to be different, if the world were to be exactly how Gen Z are envisioning it, or desiring it to be, the way it was in the past magical generations, they'd still be complaining. And that's the whole thing. This whole nostalgia for the past, the nostalgia for, I guess, the 1950s in the United States, because that's the only generation that anybody could potentially be jealous of. No one has nostalgia for, say, people that grew up or came of age in the 1930s. So if you were a 20-year-old in 1929 in the United States, you were faced with the Great Depression. So no one is exactly, let's just say, longing for the days of the Great Depression. And yet that is a previous generation that one could be nostalgic about. No one is. No, everything's focused on the 1950s, maybe even the 60s. And indeed, those were good times. Those were good times, but they were aberrant. Those are not normal. That does not happen. That did not happen for Gen X. That did not happen for the millennials. And that's not happening for Gen X. For Gen Z. But what is happening for Gen Z is that you guys are growing up in this crappy situation that could only really improve. So you're working through the worst of it right now. And what I'm saying is that with the election of Trump, the situation is at least being predicted that it should improve. And if the jobs do come back and you guys start getting those jobs, what's going to happen then? Are you going to stop the bitching? Or are you going to carry on with the bitching as you have been up to this point? And my hypothesis on this situation is that you will continue on with the bitching. And the reason I believe this is true is because this is already happening. This is already happening with you guys. Now, there's a contingent of Gen Z that actually have jobs. And I did a video about this a few videos back, talking about the young man who's longing for his teenage years of playing video games with his buddies. Now, why is he bitching? He's bitching not because he can't find work, not because the economy is punishing him in any specific way. He's bitching because he doesn't like what a job actually means. And that's why I'm very convinced that once the jobs return, because they always do, one form or another, all of this stuff goes in cycles, the bitching will continue. Now, how are you going to live with that? How are you going to live with that? Because what I'm seeing right now is that the complaint isn't so much from a contingent of it, those that can't find work. The complaint is they can't find work. From those that can't find work, they don't like the structure of work. They don't like the idea of having to spend 8 hours of your day plus the commute, which is, I don't know, in my generation, that an hour drive, 100 kilometers getting to work was very normal. Nobody blinked at that. You drove an hour to work, you spent 8, 9, maybe 10 hours there, then you drove an hour back from the office. And that, like I said, was very normal. Now, when people are complaining, Gen Z are complaining that that's just way too much of their time being eaten up, then what do you expect to happen when more jobs become available that follow that structure? Because that's literally what the complaint is right now, that there's not enough jobs. But the jobs that there's not enough of are exactly the jobs you would be complaining about if you had them to begin with. So I don't know how you're going to resolve this situation. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't believe that the classic setup of a job, the way well, the way my generation grew up with was ideal. I don't believe that that's the best allocation of people's time. Now, the way jobs are structured in general, the whole education system is basically for slaves, because that's how the education system was designed to be. It was meant to pump out slaves. If you look at Cicero and how he defined education, it's very different from how we have, especially university structured. You see, a slave's education is an education where you learn one craft to a high level of competence, and you're meant to repeat that one craft for the rest of your life to the benefit predominantly of someone else, which is literally what a day job is. You're supposed to go to university, you're supposed to master one skill, and then you do it until 65, meaning you do it through all the good years of your life, and then you get all the garbage years for yourself. So that's basically a slave's education. A free man's education works very differently. See, a free man is not a man who has a single competency. What he has is an innate confidence in their ability to learn and all the skill sets necessary for them to learn what they need to learn to solve the problems they encounter in the real world as they encounter it. You see, the world is unpredictable, as we know. It doesn't stay in one place. It keeps shifting and moving and changing, and the economy changes and culture changes and wars break out, and something's always going on that's causing a shift, a change. It's making irrelevant that which you had done in the past, like we're seeing with the whole AI replacement of jobs, which we'll get into in a second. But the properly educated man is the man who can navigate all of these things. He doesn't worry so much about change because he anticipates change. In fact, he structured his entire education around compensating for change, so that when something does throw him off track because a technology has replaced something he's been doing for a while to generate money, what he does is he learns the new thing so that he can continue earning money and doing whatever it is that his vision in his life entails him to want to do. That was the education of a free man. And that's how universities used to be structured, where the core thing that you were learning in a university was not a craft. It was not a specific skill that then you went and translated into money by selling your time to somebody else. What it was a breadth-wise view of the human condition, of human life, of culture, and it meant to lead to an individual that was independent. And I think that's the key word we're looking at here, independent. Independent of any specific situation in time, any specific external conditions that would cause him to falter and not be able to deal with the situation. That was not meant to happen. So, those that complain about being lied to about the education system not leading them to work, well, honestly, I don't think schools actually promise jobs. They haven't promised that anymore because honestly they can't, because every student's different. But at the same time, it doesn't even matter. You went to university, you studied something, and that was the natural consequence of studying in university, is getting an instructor to present to you a set of information that you were meant to do something with further down in life, and no one was really responsible for dictating to you how you're going to use the information that you learned in school. Most anticipated they would just be handed a job, that they have a degree of some sort, as if a degree is some sort of meaningful, indicator of anything. And you're going to be handed a job, and then you're just going to, fall into the life on rails, the cookie cutter life of wife, mortgage, kids, picket fence, dog, whatever. I mean, again, that sounds to me also like the continuation of the slave life, whereby which your entire life is predicted into the future for you because you're already planning your future as if it's original somehow, but it isn't, because it's exactly how you were brainwashed to believe you ought to live. Nonetheless, I can see why people are upset that they didn't even get that. However, because you guys don't like what you're encountering when you do find jobs, changing the economy will not solve your fundamental problem. You will still have to suffer through what, say, Gen X, what my generation suffered through, what the millennials did, what the boomers even did. It's just that maybe, it's going to be easier to find your slave master in this fashion. And you're not going to like that. So you're still going to look for another way out. And here's the good news about all this. Is that People say that we live now in an attention economy, and this is very, very true. Now, this has a lot of, let's just say, good things in store for those who are entrepreneurial in nature, which means free men, which means people driven by initiative, because it means your fate is really in your own hands. And the great thing about the current times is now, that's much better than it was about the past, is that education is fundamentally free, specifically on YouTube. And the technology needed to tap into the attention economy is pretty much free as well. Now think about it. What is the attention economy? How does it function? Well, it only functions because of the internet, and that's obvious. Now, what is our interface with the internet? You see, the internet ultimately, as a digital space, is not fully represented as the way the physical space is, meaning that there are certain senses that don't translate onto the internet. The sense of smell does not translate onto the internet. The sense of sight does, the sense of sound does, touch doesn't, sound, sight, and pretty much body movement, motion, things like that. Anything containing to video. So ultimately, your interface to the internet, interface to the digital reality, which now we're in one foot in that, one foot in the material world, is mediated through media, through video specifically, which makes YouTube by far the most powerful medium in order to interact with, to interface with that new world we live in. That means that the most relevant skill sets today are not even things explicitly taught in schools, other than, say, maybe in audio engineering classes or in film school. But people don't take that because they consider those goofy jobs where you can't find work after the fact, whereas in reality, the attention economy commands that you actually engage in those disciplines in order to tap into it. So if I were to say, what is a proper education for a free man today, I would say this is someone who can do audio engineering to a level of competence where they're able to either capture voice for a podcast, voice for video, or voice in general, to convey whatever meaning they wish to convey, whatever message and communication they wish to convey to the internet, well, to people on the internet through the digital medium. Same thing with video work. Photography is relevant, videography is relevant, and like I said, an audio work. So to me, these are like the three competencies that are in most demand for you to possess in order to tap into the attention economy. And all the education, like I said, is available for free on YouTube already. You can learn all these things from other YouTubers who have gone before you, and that's great. That's something that did not exist, 20 years ago, prior to YouTube, prior to the attention economy being viable. You had to actually go through school. So school became irrelevant in that sense. Today, as much as people still, need it for certain disciplines like medicine, but we're not going to go there. We're going to focus on this attention economy. The education is free, the technology is free as well, other than the camera, which you have already in your smartphone. The smartphone cameras today obviously are infinitely better than the best digital cameras from 10, 20 years ago. They have much clearer resolution from any film camera, even though people love the film look, so you can pursue that as well, which I like to do. But regardless, it's not necessary. So you have already the camera that captures audio also to a competent level of degree. Now it's about learning the software that lets you edit this sort of stuff in order to present yourself into this new real world, which is the digital world, which is basically indistinguishable from the real world now. So you have it better. Gen Z have it better from this perspective, that education's free, the tools are free. DaVinci Resolve for editing video and even audio is free. Sure, there's a studio version, don't need it, at least not to start. Maybe one day when you get, incredibly good, you may need that. But it's free. So now it's a matter of just learning it in time. If you want to do 3D work, if you want to really spice things up, do a little bit of a green screen sort of thing. I mean, a green screen is like $20, $30. You just need a small little section of your room, a cheap $20 light in order to illuminate that thing, illuminate yourself, and now you're interacting. Now you can cut yourself out, place yourself in any environment you want. And you can craft these 3D environments also for free, because Unreal Engine is free. The business models now set up by these large corporations are the sort of freemium models where Unreal Engine is free for commercial use, not just for personal use, but commercial use, unless you start making more than $1 million in one calendar year. And if you're making more than $1 million in a calendar year, why do you care if you have to pay 2% or whatever it is, the percentage that Epic Games charge in order for you to use Unreal for those large projects. So Unreal Engine is free. You just need a half-decent computer, which a lot of you are gamers, so you already possess. You have a smartphone, so you already have the camera. Now it's about developing the skills to enter that marketplace of the attention economy, which is what I'm trying to do, because I'm trying to keep with the times so much, because just like you, I don't like the day job. I did not like it for a long time. The problem for me with the day job wasn't even the time you spent there. It was the necessary hours you had to be there. I have trouble sleeping. Now, if I have trouble sleeping, that means I have trouble waking up. But if I have to be somewhere at 9 a.m., then the people who pay me don't care about my personal problems of sleeping, but I care. And that weighs you down. That really can destroy you over time. So for me, the day job had a lot of negatives that translated far beyond destruction for me, other than the fact that I couldn't engage in my hobbies or see my friends from time to time. So like I'm saying, the current days are great. Gen Z need to look at the benefits you have, not the drawbacks, specifically on the free tools, the education, and also the artistic dimension that is now possible that definitely wasn't possible during my time. I mean, I always wanted to be a musician, and I had to put that dream aside for 20 years working in software simply because it was unaffordable, and there were no mentors, and there was no information. I had no idea how even to engage with this. I learned to play the guitar, but that does not translate into a music career. Today, the digital audio workstation, also free. Reaper, for example, completely free. Don't use Reaper, but it doesn't matter. Completely free, completely able to produce the highest quality output imaginable. I can get it. You can get it. I can learn about Reaper, or any DAW for that matter, off YouTube. So can you. Now it's just a matter of educating yourself. So I can engage in my artistic projects without needing a mentor, without needing anything other than what I already possess, which is a computer. That was not possible 20 years ago, so I didn't do it. Today it is. I'm very, very happy. So honestly, for my intents and purposes, we live in a better time today than we did 20 years ago, because these things are possible. Now with Gen Z looking back upon whatever the golden age of the economy, because I think that's all people care about now is money. So nobody talks about the cultural dimension other than maybe the dating scene, which I will agree is garbage. However, if you learn to navigate the contemporary model, let's just say that you're not going to relive the past. You're not necessarily going to get what you had in the past, but at the same time, you're going to get something new, something different that sucks to some degree, but you can learn to live with it. Regardless, not a video about dating. There needs to be a positive attitude towards the present within Gen Z. I think that's really what it is, because the bitching won't stop once the jobs come back, because the nature of the jobs hasn't changed and it won't change unless you change it. And you all want to work for yourselves. Everybody wants to work for themselves. It's just you need to figure out how to do it. And you have the tools to learn that, but you're lazy. And that's another thing that's not going to go away just because there's more economic ease. The idea that you're going to go to work and someone's going to tell you what to do, and then you're going to make a lot of money and have all this free time, it's not possible. It never was. It wasn't possible in my time. It's not possible in your time. It's not going to be possible if the economy is fixed. So abandon that dream. Everything is hard work, regardless of how you're doing it. So you might as well leverage the technology, leverage the education that's available, forget the entire past, forget the fact that, you wasted 4 years in university. If you have debt, deal with it. Bankrupt yourself, move, do what you need to do in order to deal with the modern life as it is structured right now. But it's not bad. It's not bad. You got to stop complaining, start looking at the good things, because there's a lot of good things. Now I have how would you put it, the perspective to be able to compare the past with the present, so I'm trying to convey that to you through language, through meaning, through this media, against, this green screen that I'm going to probably replace with another interesting background in my own experimentation, in my own shooting. I too like the new world as much as anyone who knows what the hardships of the old world were like. And I think that's the big difference between Gen Z, Gen X, is that we're glad to be rid of the troubles which are invisible to Gen Z, and we're glad for the opportunities that exist right now. And so we have a lot of gratitude put towards this new world. And regardless of the economy, which again shifts and changes, much like we had, the 2008 crash, the housing market crash, which is horrible, which you guys lived through but weren't aware of because you weren't in the working space. Now, when I first entered the workforce, it was the crash, it was the dot-com bubble burst in IT, me coming out of university with a computer science degree. So I'm not particularly, how'd you put it, sympathetic to those claiming that, the economy is so bad when they're starting out, because it was terrible for me as well. People were laid off in mass in IT at that time. Many changed careers because there was no work. I somehow persevered working really crappy IT jobs, like working at a motorcycle shop somewhere in the back with one other Chinese guy doing some weird local code for this motorcycle shop. And it was IT mostly by name. I mean, it wasn't at an IT company. I mean, it was weird. Those are the gigs I was doing at that point in time. And they paid basically minimum wage plus a couple of dollars. So it's not like even that degree was paying off. My first salary was $22,000 a year. Take away the taxes, I don't know, maybe I was making $18,000, and I was making that for the first year, 2 years or so with a degree back in, I guess, 2002, which may be a bit bigger today in terms of salaries, but then starting salaries are a bit higher, if you could even get that. So regardless, I had it bad, you have it bad, we're even. We're even, no real sympathy paid from my part here. Now, when it comes to AI, now a lot of you guys are going to be complaining also that AI is now taking jobs, which it is, but AI is taking jobs from people who have jobs, not from people who don't have jobs. So they're affecting the older generations far more than they're affecting you guys right now. And they will affect you, of course, because there will be less jobs of the old type to get into once the economy picks up. But there will be new jobs of the new type with AI in mind as the economy picks up. And now you got to figure out what those are. Pretty much like when electricity was introduced, this sort of AI-like phenomenon happened to manual laborers with the introduction of power tools. They lived through it. A lot of manual labor was replaced with power tools, with steam-powered machinery, with everything in the Industrial Revolution. So the people that now work in the manual labor sector had to live through this as a generational sort of phenomenon probably 100 years ago. So not the actual people living today, but the people, who embody the tradition of manual labor. They already paid their dues with the replacement of most jobs by electrical powered things. White collar work is now experiencing the same phenomenon with AI. AI is the steam engine, is the power tool of basically white collar work. And so now our time has come, and we need to adapt, and we will adapt, and things will be fine. Of course, the transition period is going to suck, but if you actually keep on top of what's going on, stop looking at the past, start looking at the present and the future of how AI-related work will start to become more and more relevant in industry, you'll be current. You'll find work because somebody still has to operate AI. So even though programmers are being replaced by AI, you still need a programmer to engage with AI to do programming. You just need less of them. So the competency isn't going away. The volume of that type of labor is going away. And the specialty related to the skill set for that type of job is now transforming. So people don't like change. They don't like change, and so they're complaining. But if you take that positive attitude into the future and look at it more like we live in a realm of enormous opportunity right now. We live in a realm where you can take the initiative and you have a green pasture in relationship to AI on how to forge your future, which 10, 20 years from now, when looked back upon today, will be considered a golden age in terms of opportunity within this space, of course. So take it as that. Look at the positive. Be grateful for what you have and work for it. Work for your position in the world. Work for that which you wish to carve out for yourself, because there is no job, neither historically nor in the present, where you get paid a lot for doing basically nothing. That never existed. It doesn't exist today. It didn't exist back then, and it's not going to exist in the future. And that's it. I mean, that's it. What more can I really say about any of this? I mean, look forward to the near future. Trump hopefully is going to do some good in terms of picking up the economy. in 5 years, if indeed things get really good, you're going to reflect back on today and say, yeah, it was kind of crap, but we got through it. Now everything's okay. And that's just how it's going to be. So, yeah. I hope this was somewhat useful to you. Thanks for listening. Go team.